wake up, and before you even open your eyes, your mind is already going, already planning, already replaying something from yesterday, already running through what you have to do today. You haven't even moved yet, and it already feels like you're behind. That feeling, your mind won't stop. Your thoughts won't slow. You know it. You've tried to slow it down. Maybe you told yourself last week you'd start differently. Maybe you've tried this before. A morning routine, a quieter start, something that was supposed to help. And it worked for a few days. And then it didn't. And now you're back here. Same feeling, same rush, same morning. You know something needs to change. But knowing hasn't been enough. Here's the thing. Buddhists have been doing mornings differently for over 2,500 years. Not with rituals that take hours. Not with perfect routines you have to earn your way into. Not with some version of yourself you have to become before any of this applies to you. Just 7 small things, 7 quiet shifts that most people skip entirely. And in this video, we're going to go through all of them, not as instructions, not as a checklist you have to complete perfectly every morning, as a reminder of what you already know is possible, even in a rushed, imperfect, ordinary morning. This is the wisdom that Buddhist practice has offered for centuries, not as religion, as a practical way of living. Buddha once said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." That includes what you think in the first 5 minutes of your morning, maybe especially then. Most people, the second they open their eyes, reach for their phone before they've said a word to anyone, before they've taken a full breath, before they've even decided how they feel. Their first act of the day is handing their attention to something else. Notifications, news headlines, emails that weren't urgent yesterday and aren't urgent now. Other people's urgency, other people's problem, and the morning is already gone. Before it even started, you've done this. Most people have. And the strange thing is, you usually don't feel better afterward. You feel more wound up, more scattered, like you arrived at the day already behind. Your thoughts were running before you were. Buddhists don't do this. Not because of a strict rule, not because they don't have phones, but because they understand something real about the mind. The first moments of waking are unusually open, unusually receptive. The nervous system hasn't fully loaded yet. The day hasn't made its demands yet. In Buddhist practice, this window is treated as significant because whatever you pour into a quiet mind tends to sink deep. If the first thing you see is stress, your body will spend the next hour trying to regulate something it didn't need to take on. So they wait. Even 5 minutes, even 2, just enough time to let themselves arrive before the world does. You don't have to delete your phone. You don't have to go off grid. You just have to give yourself the first 2 minutes of the day before you give them away. That's it. 2 minutes of your own mind before you fill it with someone else's. And if even that feels hard, start with 30 seconds. Just lie there for 30 seconds and notice what you actually feel. Not what you think you should feel. Not what the notification is telling you to feel. Just what's actually there. That quiet check-in with yourself is more valuable than most people realize. It's the beginning of a different kind of morning. Not meditation in the formal sense. Not cross-legged on a cushion with incense burning. Not anything that requires a class or a teacher. or 20 minutes you don't have. Silence for a moment before the noise of the day begins, before the coffee maker, before the news, before the podcast you put on, because silence makes you uncomfortable, before anything external enters and starts competing for your attention. You sitting with the fact that you exist, and this day is beginning. Most people find this deeply uncomfortable at first, and that's not a criticism. It's honest. We're not trained for stillness. We're trained for productivity. We're trained to move, respond, produce, to always be doing something that can be measured. Stillness feels like wasting time when you have a full day ahead of you. But here's the thing, the discomfort itself is information. If you can't sit quietly for 2 minutes without your thoughts immediately spiraling into what you have to do, or what you should have done, or what you're already overthinking today, that tells you something important about the current state of your mind. Not as a judgment, as a signal. Buddhist practice doesn't teach that silence fixes things. It teaches that silence reveals things. It shows you what's actually running underneath before you cover it up with noise. It shows you the tone of your inner world before the outer world has a chance to override it. A few minutes of silence in the morning won't solve your problems, but it creates a gap, a small space between waking and reacting, between feeling something and immediately acting on it, between drifting and being fully, consciously present. And in that gap, something quieter gets a chance to breathe. Something more grounded gets to start your day instead of the anxiety. Here's something most people don't notice about their own mornings. By the time they're fully out of bed and moving, they've already been holding their breath or breathing so shallow and fast that their body is reading it as a warning signal. Their mind can't slow down, and neither can their breath. This isn't dramatic. It's subtle, but it matters more than people realize. Shallow chest breathing is not neutral. It activates the part of your nervous system that was designed for emergencies, the part that says, hurry up. Something is wrong. You need to move faster. And most people walk into their morning already in that state without ever realizing it. Buddhists have known for centuries what modern science has confirmed. Slow, deliberate breathing shifts the nervous system. It moves you out of threat mode and into something more settled. It doesn't take long. It doesn't have to be formal. It's not about breathing correctly in some technical sense. It's about noticing. 3 breaths. In through the nose, slow enough to actually feel the lungs expand. Out through the mouth, slow enough to feel the release. And while you're doing that, noticing what's around you. The feeling of the bed, the sound of the room, the temperature of the air on your skin for a few seconds. That's it. That's the whole practice. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but that's the mistake people make consistently. They dismiss the simple things because they're looking for something bigger, something more complex, something that feels more proportional to their problems. The simple things are where it actually happens. And every morning you skip them, you begin your day from a slightly more disconnected place. There's something Buddhist teachers return to often. The body is always in the present. The mind is almost never there. The body is breathing right now, right where you are. The mind is in tomorrow's meeting or yesterday's argument. Bringing attention to your breath isn't just a breathing exercise. It's a way of calling yourself back to where you actually are, to this room, this morning, this day that's just beginning. Most people wake up and immediately start building their to-do list in their head. Everything they need to finish, everything they forgot to do yesterday, everything that's piling up at work, the meeting, the email they've been avoiding, the errand that's been on the list for a week. And by the time they're brushing their teeth, they're already mentally tired by a day that hasn't even started yet. You felt this, that pre-exhaustion, that tiredness that arrives before anything is actually asked anything of you. Buddhists approach the morning differently, not with a longer to-do list, not with a more efficient planning system, with a question. Instead of, what do I need to do today? They ask, how do I want to be today? That shift is small, but it changes the entire orientation of the morning. A to-do list is about output, what you accomplish, what you cross off before the day ends. And intention is about orientation. It's about how you want to move through the day, not just what you want to get through. It might be something like, I want to be patient today, especially in the moments that test me. I want to give full attention to whatever I'm doing. I want to do fewer things, but actually be present for each of them. That's not wishful thinking. It's not vague positive talk. It's a direction. And when you set a direction before the day sets it for you, you have a different relationship with everything that follows. Because when the difficult moment comes, and it usually does, you have something to return to. Not a rule, not a goal, a direction you chose for yourself before anything else had a chance to choose it for you. Think about what that actually means. Most mornings, the day chooses your mood for you. Something goes slightly wrong, and you're reactive for hours. Someone says something, and it sticks. You miss a beat, and you're off for the rest of the morning. Setting an intention doesn't protect you from all of that, but it gives you somewhere to return to when it happens. A single sentence at the start of the morning, how I want to be today, becomes an anchor. And anchors matter when the current is strong. This one is almost invisible. Most people think it's too small to count, but watch what it reveals. Watch how most people drink their first coffee in the morning. They're standing at the counter. They're checking their phone. They're half listening to something or running through the conversation they need to have later. The coffee is in their hand. It's warm. It's the thing they said they were looking forward to all night. And they're not there for any of it. They're already somewhere else in their mind. Already at the meeting. Already in the problem. Drinking coffee they can't even taste because they're not in the room where they're standing. Buddhists practice something called mindful eating. Mindfulness in Buddhist teaching simply means full attention, presence without distraction, and it doesn't require a ceremony. It doesn't require special food or specific posture. It just means being present for the first thing you put in your body. Not because eating is mystical, but because how you eat in the morning reflects almost exactly how you're moving through everything else. If you can't slow down enough to actually taste your first cup of coffee, to feel the warmth of it in your hands, to notice the smell before the first sip, to be present for something you were genuinely looking forward to, then you're already running a speed that the morning didn't demand of you. You created that speed, and it will carry into everything. So they sit. They hold the cup. They take the first sip slowly. They're actually there for it. That's the whole thing. Not a ritual, not a performance. A small act of being fully somewhere instead of being half somewhere else. Every time you choose to slow down, when everything in you wants to speed up, you're building something, a different relationship with your own life. Not just your mornings, your actual life. Here's something most people don't realize about their own mornings. There's almost always a difficult thought within the first few minutes of being awake. A worry about something coming, a regret about something past, an unresolved tension with someone you haven't dealt with yet, a fear that today might not go the way you need it to. Most people don't even recognize it as a thought. They just suddenly feel it. That tightness in the chest, that low-level dread that settles in, that sense that something is already wrong, and they immediately start following it. Problem solving before the day is started, running scenarios, replaying conversations, trying to think their way out of a feeling. And before they've had a glass of water, a spiral is already in motion. Buddhists are trained to notice this moment and do something different. Not suppress the thought. Suppression doesn't work. It just makes the thought louder. Not deny it. Not force yourself into false positivity. Not follow it. There's an understanding in Buddhist practice that changes things when you really absorb it. You don't have to believe every thought you have. Thoughts arise. That's what minds do. They generate thoughts constantly, including thoughts that feel urgent, thoughts that feel like facts, thoughts that feel like the final verdict on how things are. And most of them are just weather. Something is shifting in how you understand this. You're beginning to see the difference between a thought that arrives and a thought you've chosen to build a morning on. Buddhist teachers often use the image of the sky. Thoughts are clouds. The sky doesn't become the cloud. It just holds it briefly, and then the cloud moves through. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices them. You can let a difficult thought be there without turning it into the story of your morning, without feeding it, without treating it as evidence that today is already going to be hard. That's not denial. It's discernment. It's the ability to say, that thought arrived. I don't have to go with it. Let me see what actually happens today before I decide how to feel about it. That one small shift practiced in the mornings changes how entire days unfold. Because the thoughts that arrive in those first few minutes, if you let them set the tone, tend to attract more thoughts of the same kind. It's how the mind works. One anxious thought invites another. One critical thought finds evidence everywhere. But if you can pause, even briefly, and recognize the thought as a thought, not as a fact, not as a forecast, something different becomes available. Not a better thought, just more space. And in that space, the day can actually start fresh. This is the last one. And for most people, it's the hardest. Not because it requires skill, not because it takes time, but because most of us were never taught to do it. We were taught to be productive, to be useful, to prove our worth through what we accomplish before the day is fully begun. And we were taught that compassion is something you extend outward, something kind and generous, that you offer to people who are struggling, to people who have done something hard, to people who need it. Not something you turn inward, not something you give to yourself just for being here. But that's exactly what Buddhists do. Before the productivity, before the performance, before the to-do list and the meetings and the decisions, there's a quiet acknowledgement. You're here. You woke up. That's enough for right now. Buddha said, you, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Not after you've earned it. Not after you've had a productive morning. Not after you've proven that you're the kind of person who deserves to be treated with care. Just you, as you are, right now. Most people skip this completely. They wake up and the very first internal voice is already critical, already measuring yesterday's failures, already listing the ways they fell short, already calculating what they need to be just to feel acceptable. And that voice, if you don't meet it with something steadier, will be the narrator of your entire day. It will color everything, every interaction, every moment of difficulty, every small thing that doesn't go as planned. Self-compassion in the morning doesn't mean you stop caring about the things that matter. It doesn't mean lowering your standards. It doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It means choosing to begin from a place of steadiness rather than self-attack. It means recognizing that harshness is not the same as discipline, that you can hold yourself accountable for things that matter without treating yourself as the enemy. And from that foundation, from that quiet place of something softer, everything else becomes more possible. Here's what you might notice across all 7. None of them require a perfect morning. None of them require more time than most people already have. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. You don't need a quiet house. You don't need a practice room or a dedicated cushion or a version of yourself that's already figured things out. You just need a few minutes and the willingness to do something slightly different than what you've always done automatically. Because here's the honest truth about autopilot. It's not neutral. Every morning you run on autopilot. You're not just passively drifting. You're actively reinforcing a pattern, a way of starting the day already anxious, a way of arriving at the afternoon, feeling like you were never quite fully there, a way of reaching the evening and wondering where the day went and where you went inside it. These 7 shifts are not about perfection. They're not about becoming someone different. They're about interruption, interrupting the automatic pattern long enough to choose something. Even one of these things, even 3 mornings out of 7, even imperfectly, something changes. And that's what Buddhist practice actually is. Not a system you execute perfectly. A practice you return to over and over. You'll have mornings where none of this happens, where you wake up already stressed and reach for your phone and run out the door without a breath or a thought or a moment of intention. That will happen. And that's not failure. That's a morning. Buddhist practice is not about the mornings where everything goes right. It's about what you do when things go the way they usually do. Imperfect, rushed, ordinary. The monks and teachers who have practiced for decades will tell you the same thing. The practice is in the returning, not in the perfect execution. Every morning you return to even one of these things. You're practicing something real, not because you failed the last time you forgot, but because the present moment is always available. Tomorrow morning is always a new place to begin. That's not a cliche. That's the core of what these teachings offer, that you can always begin again, without drama, without self-judgment, without having to earn your way back. Beginning again. 7 things, none of them complicated, none of them requiring more than a few minutes. Not reaching for your phone right away, sitting in silence, even briefly. Noticing your breath before you move, setting an intention instead of just a to-do list, slowing down for the first thing you eat or drink, letting the first difficult thought pass without following it, and beginning the day with a little compassion for yourself. That's it. That's what Buddhists do in the morning, that most people skip, not because they have more time than you do, not because their lives are simpler, but because they understand something true about time, that how you spend the first few minutes of the day sets something in motion that carries through all the hours after. You don't have to change everything at once. Pick one. Try it tomorrow morning. Just one. And notice, not with expectation, not with pressure to have some breakthrough, but with honest attention. What shifts? Because even the smallest shift in how you begin your day can quietly change the quality of everything that follows. And if this way of looking at the mind resonates with you, we go deeper into these teachings every week on this channel. If that's something you'd like to be part of, consider subscribing. We'd be glad to have you here.